The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. This is Tammy Cole at the Department of Family and Sport Services. This is the 2021 Contracting TA webinar on January 7th, 2021. I really appreciate that you're all here. I want to say Happy New Year. I'm very grateful that we all made it through 2020. I don't have to tell you how challenging that was, and I'm excited it's a new year with new beginnings, and I want to take a moment to say how I appreciate all that you are doing and that we're saving lives. Our work is saving lives, and I just want you to just know how important you are, and I just really appreciate it. We can start with we'll go ahead and start with the webinar. The presenters are, next slide, please. The agenda, the agenda is we're going to talk about the scope and the budget. Next slide, please. Oh, I want to tell you the presenters are Cindy Rivera from the Homeless Division, myself, Angela Smith from the Finance Division, and we have Thomas Moores from DFSS.
Hi everyone. If I may come in and talk to you real quick before you get started on this slide. My name is Tom Mose. I work at Department of Family Support Services. I'm actually in the Children's Services Division, but I help with technical assistance with all the go-to webinar meetings for all the DFSS divisions. So I'm happy to be here today and help do any troubleshooting or technical assistance. You should be hearing all of us right now, and you can see our screens. We are recording the webinar that will be provided to you at a later time, along with a copy of the PowerPoint, and they'll go over how they'll get that PowerPoint to you, and if it needs to be updated with some information, they'll let you know that too before it's sent out to you today. Just to let you all know, there's going to be questions during the webinar, and in your dashboard, you have a questions box. That's chat questions. That's where you'll enter in any questions you have, and they'll be taking Tammy, when it comes back and talks, she'll tell you how they're going to be taking questions today before she gets started. So thanks again, and if I have to individually chat with you, just send a message, and I look forward to having a good webinar with all of you today. Thank you. Back to you, Tammy.
Thank you. Before I get into the important dates, I just want to encourage you to, when you're completing the scopes and budgets, have a copy of your award letter with you, and also be sure to review your boilerplate documents that has important information on just the regulations. So I just wanted you to know that. I also want to emphasize, this is real important, that the contract documents are listed in your award letter that you have to submit to the contract liaison, who is assigned to you, and that person is in the award letter. Their name and contact information. You send the budget and the scope only to your assigned program manager, and that also is in your award letter. And we have here on the screen, it'll be Carrie Moy, Natalia, Susan, and Cindy. And their email addresses are on the slide. So I just want to be sure to let you know, do not send scopes and budgets to your contract liaison. They go to your program manager. It'll just make things run a lot smoother. I just wanted to emphasize that. And also your CSBG funded programs, your scopes and budgets must be in by this Friday, January 8th. The importance of that is we have to send to our funder copies of the approved scopes and budgets for the CSBG funding before they will sign and approve the grant agreement for the year 2021. So it's just real important that we get these scopes and budgets in as soon as possible, because if we do not, we have to, before the money can be available, we have to have an executed contract with our funder. So I just want to emphasize the importance of getting in the CSBG funded programs, your scopes and budgets in no later than this Friday. The remaining funding programs, get your scopes and budgets in as soon as possible. As most of you are aware, your agency cannot voucher unless your contract has been processed. So it's just important, the sooner that you get these documents, get the contract documents to your contract liaison and get your scopes and budgets to the program manager, and that we can review and process them, the faster you will have access to your funding. Next slide. Forms are available for download from the following site, and we have a link here. It's www.cityofchicago.org/FSS contract. This link is also in your award letter. And then under the forms in the category, you go to Homeless Service Division, and you do not alter or change the scope or budget forms. Forms that have been manipulated will be returned and not reviewed. If for some reason you're having trouble having trouble with the scopes, not being able to input information or whatever, please give your program manager a call. Also on that on this site is also on there is the ESG certification form, and we'll get more into that later. And it also has the updated program models chart. The ESG certification form, this form is required to be signed and submitted with completed budgets by the agency's funding source is ESG and or used as a match to ESG funding. Please contact your program manager if you are unsure if you are required to submit an ESG certification form. Next slide.
Oh, so I guess it's my turn. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. This is Cindy Rivera. So let's talk a little bit about the ESG certification form. So as many of you are aware, you've used this in the past. So the ESG certification is to be used for agencies who are being funded with Emergency Solutions Grant and or are being utilized as the ESG match funds as designated by DFSS. So this form basically lists which costs are and are not allowable. Again, it's just getting into it, and it's go by category, by shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and it also lists at the end which costs would be ineligible, and it has to be signed by the agency, well, really staff initial with the PO, so it has to be added to each PO that's ESG funded or ESG matched. So to reiterate, again, all agencies who utilize ESG funds or ESG match must complete this form. This email will inform the agencies that either their complete or part of their funding source is ESG based. In order to comply with HUD regulations, an ESG form must be uploaded along with the budget form. So again, this is more like an acknowledgement that you are aware of what costs are eligible under ESG. And again, if you have any questions regarding any specific costs that are not listed here, feel free to contact your program manager and they'll help you out. Again, it's just talking about the ESG certification process. Each budget is required with one. And then this form will be uploaded with your budget onto the system after your budget has been approved. Okay, Tammy, you're up.
Okay. I just, the 2021 scope, the majority of the homeless program models, the scopes did not change except for updating the performance indicators based on the current program model chart. The programs that did change are the ones that were affected most affected with COVID, and that is your drop-in, outreach, and shelter. Next slide, please. The scope is in a fillable form, and it's divided into 5 sections: agency information, program goals and core elements, performance measurement, requirements, submittal and approval. Next slide. Okay,
with Section 8, yeah. So the Section 8 is just a snapshot on what it looks like, and it just provides us with information such as your HMIS number, the type of program, program name, etc., things that we need in order to put in our records as well.
So the program models impacted most directly by COVID, which I said was the emergency shelter, interim shelter, drop-in center / outreach programs. And I will now go over the following changes that were made. Next slide, please.
And we wanted to reiterate that the scope that we're going to be using is an interim shelter scope. So it's just an example.
Okay, the changes for the interim shelter scope is meals. You calculate the number of meals based on your decompressed number of beds that you currently have, if your number of beds have been decompressed. So that's what you would use to base your meals on. Next slide. Okay, on your program capacity numbers, there's going to be 2 sections. One is going to be based on your pre-COVID numbers, your program capacity, and the program capacity and number of beds section, and your program configuration. Those are all pre-COVID. So you would input the number of beds per the original contract. For example, if your original contract had 50 beds, you would put that in there in this pre-COVID section. Next slide. I'm sorry, go back to the other slide, please, if you can. I also want to say that there is a section, you have to fill it out for both pre-COVID numbers and your decompressed numbers for these charts here. Next slide. And then the same thing we have listed for the clients and households served, we need it both for pre-COVID and your decompressed numbers. So that's what you would use to fill this out. So there's going to be a chart for your pre-COVID clients and households served, and also a different chart for your decompressed clients and households served. Next slide. And then you also have a chart again that has your program capacity, number of beds, and you will do it for pre-COVID, and you also will have a chart for decompressed beds. On the program description, if your agency was impacted by decompression due to COVID, you need to explain how that impacted the operation of your program. So if you changed, for example, many of the shelters had to decompress, and they had to reduce their number of beds to adhere to the regulations for spacing and not being too close. So that you would explain in here that you had to reduce your beds, and any also other things that have been impacted by COVID. If you're doing remote case management or whatever you're doing differently, you need to explain it in this program description. Next slide. And then we're on the performance measurement, section C. A couple changes, and this was on all of your program models, was we updated the program, we updated and included the link for the program model chart. And there's a link in the scope to get that. And also the updated program models chart is also on the DFSS web page. And then we also updated the performance outcomes that we're using for each program model based on the updated program models chart. Next page. Okay, this is real important, and this is where there's a lot of mistakes made. This is section A, and this is where it's the term of the budget. We already have that inputted in there, but the total program amount, that's the total amount that we're giving you for the program. So what you put in the chart, the below it, where it has the PO number, award amount, and contract type and funding source, the total award amount should add up to the program amount. So if you have 100,000 in your award amount, then it should be total program amount should be 100,000. And I also want to emphasize, people have gotten this wrong, so to take your time and be sure that you look at your award letter and put in the correct PO number, the award amount, and then where it says contract type, funding source, be sure that you take it exactly out of the award letter. So for example, I'll just say it's PO 1234, award amount $1,000, and the contract funding type is homeless CDBG, or it could be homeless ESG, or whatever funding source you're getting, homeless IDHS, whatever funding source, but be sure that the the PO number is the correct PO number for that funding source. And this has been a common problem. So just be sure to make sure you use your award letter and double check the information that you're completing. Next slide.
Oops. Hold on.
Okay,
I'm having there.
there. Okay. The next slide is on the ADA compliance. So we have links to this that you need to, for each site, say if you're ADA compliant or not, or if you're Section 504 compliant or not. ADA is the mobility, if it's handicap accessible, and if and Section 504 also includes blind, braille, and lights, you know, for people that can't hear or see. If you have any questions on that, please give me a call. My information is at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions on the ADA or Section 504 policies, please give me a call directly. Next slide. The section B is on program goals and core elements. And basically we list our DFSS homeless division goals, our program goals, the target population, and core elements. Next slide. And section C is on performance measurement. It's on the overview, performance indicators, data reporting, meetings, and use of data. And I'm sorry, go back to section B, please, the slide before. I just wanted to say that it's very important that you put your target population and that you complete the core elements and that you review this very carefully. Next slide. Performance measurements, again, is our performance indicators and how, what we expect, what indicators you should be striving to meet. And again, those were based on the updated program models chart, and also the importance of data reporting. And we have, as you know, the last, I think it's been 2 years, working on improving our performance and improving how what data we're reporting, and working to improve our outcomes through active contract management. And in here also explains where we'll, going forth, also we'll continue to have meetings to talk about how we can improve our performance and the concerns that we have in implementing our programs. So that I just be sure to review that. Next slide. Next
Well, you want me to do it, Tammy?
Pardon me?
No, I was going to go ahead and do it, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So section D is lists our requirements. So there are additional and priority that DFSS requires for all our programs. For instance, in shelters, we require all of them to adhere to the Family Preservation Act. And for specific programs, we require shelters, for instance, to provide your bed availability on a daily basis to Salvation Army. So I think it's a good idea for agencies to go through the requirements to see what you are actually responsible on reporting and performing. Section E is the submittal and approval, which is the last page of the scope. So just make sure that you check off that little box for your certification. We ask that the original signature and date be in blue ink. And also on the last page of the scope, we have listed hyperlinks, which provides agencies with funding source rules and regulations in case you have any questions in regards to your funding sources and what type of restrictions or regulations. Everything's listed there for your review.
Reminders. The number of proposed clients and households. We would recommend that you base your numbers on your. It says here 2021 clients, but it should be 2020 clients served. It's just important to put realistic numbers on here, because we will be looking at that and seeing how you're performing. It's also important that you provide your program manager with a draft of your scope and budget by email. After revisions are completed and your program manager confirms your scope and budget are acceptable, agencies will then provide a signed and dated copy of all documents. All documents should be scanned in color. I want to emphasize here that you need to scan your scope separately from your budget. You need to scan those separately. And turnaround time to submit revisions should be relatively short. The longer an agency takes to resubmit revisions, budgets, and scopes cannot be submitted for continued processing. So the faster that you respond to the requests from the program managers, the faster your documents will get approved and processed. Reach out to your assigned program managers for any questions or concerns. Next slide. Okay. Before we go on to the budget forms, I want to take questions, but I also just in general, I just want to go over just briefly the most common mistake that I've seen in budgets is not budgets, in the scopes is not completing all the information, missing information, or like I said, the PO numbers aren't matching up with the funding source, or the funding source wasn't listed. Those are common ones. Another one is sometimes the program description is not clear enough. I mean, it's too vague. You need to provide information on how you the purpose of the program and how you're operating, and so the more robust that you can be, the better. Also, the other thing, and that's why if you have any questions on the ABA, please give me a call. Sometimes that's been an issue where they say you say you're ADA compliant, but you have stairs and you don't have an elevator. Or, there's things like that it's just important that they be completed correctly. And the other thing is making sure that the document is signed and dated. So it has to be signed and dated. One other thing about the scope is you have to have all the pages of the scope, and all the scopes say page 1 of 18, 2 of 18, whatever, it has that. And make sure when you scan the document that the scope is in order, page 1 through 18. Just make sure that it's in order when you scan it. Now I'm going to look to see if there's questions. I'm not sure, somebody had asked agreement pages combined. I'm not sure what the question is. If someone could, whoever typed that in could clarify. Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is. I'm sorry. I didn't have it done. Is the funding source on the award letter? Yes. You get an award letter and attached documents, and the funding source is on there. What it is they list each funding source separately. So you'll have PO something, and it'll tell you the funding source on the award letter.
Hi, Tammy. This is Tom. Do you see all the questions, or do you need to pop out the?
I don't see all the questions. I'm sorry. How?
Oh, okay. So what you do is you go to the questions on your dashboard. It has a little arrow to the left of it. Hit that arrow, and then to the far right of the questions is a little square box with a arrow pointing to the left. Click on that square box on your dashboard, and it will pop the questions out so you can see them all at once.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And then you just have to make that. You can drag. You can drag with your cursor on the bottom of that pop-out screen to lengthen the square box on your page so you can see more questions. So if you go to the top, you see that first question. Can you see that? Okay, you can go ahead.
Yes.
Just go down and answer as many as you want.
Okay. The first question, can you both, and it says CAPS funded as well as corporate funded. I don't know what that question, I don't understand that question. And it asks, can you define decompression as it relates to programs? Yes, the decompression really relates to the shelter programs where we had to, some of the shelters had to reduce the number of beds that they had in order to meet the requirements, the health and safety requirements for the COVID. The beds had to be 6 feet apart, and that was one thing that they had to decompress. And so because of, there's limited room, we had to reduce the number of beds. So that's what decompression means. For non-homeless shelters, were award letters sent out on December 17th. I'm not sure what you mean by non-homeless shelters. If you mean all the award letters for 2021 were sent out on December 17th for 2021. So that would cover that covers shelters, it covers everything, permanent supportive housing, all the programs. If the award letter information does not match what is on the agreement letters, just a minute, let me see here. Okay, what if the award letter information does not match what is on the agreement letters? Example, the amount on the award letter are split into 2 different amounts, and the amount on the agreement page is combined. I'm not honestly sure, so if that person can call me directly, I don't know what you mean by on the agreement page. You need to list each PO that's on there, has to add, you have 1 PO for each funding source. So I'm not sure what the question, I'm unclear. So I apologize for that, but if that person can give me a call directly.
Tammy.
Yes.
Okay. Is it that I think, okay, you can have your award letter. If the award letter has 1 PO, but it needs to be broken down by separated by its funding source. But if that funding source has multiple different types of, what would you say, program names to it, then it may be combined. It's one PO, but it may be two different, like for instance, you may have ESG. ESG has an activity of emergency shelter, or it has an activity of, what's your other activity, Tammy, for ESG? So that's under that particular funding source. But if you need to have two separate budgets, because you need your budget for, if you have interim for the shelter, emergency shelter, or if you have funding for prevention, they have to be separated out. But it's still under the same global PO. But if you have two budgets, eventually you will see two different releases because they're going to be separated. So hopefully that answered your question.
For ESG, I mean for that question, what I'm trying to say is for ESG, you would just have one PO number, but our programs are set up, you would have one PO number. If there's any questions, you can call us if you have any questions, and the person that wrote this question can give me a call. And the other questions are, is the funding source on the award letter? Where is it listed? It is on the award letter itself is one page, but then you have attachments, and on there, on the attached pages, you have the funding, you have the PO number, the funding source, all of that's listed, the contract liaison, it should start on the second page is where you should see the funding sources and the PO numbers, etc. And it asks here, is e-signatures allowable? And yes, they are. Just a second. And it does ask, can this PowerPoint presentation be emailed out to attendees for later reference? Yes, it will be emailed out. It is difficult to notarize signatures given the restrictions on contact. Can we skip this? I'm not aware that signatures have to be notarized.
That's on contracts she's referring to.
Okay, on the contract document?
Yeah.
Okay.
She would need to follow up with the
contract liaison.
Yeah, just contact the contract liaison.
Yeah, thank you. That's the best thing, is to contact your contract liaison. Is there any, I'll give a few minutes just to see if anyone else wants to take a moment and type in a question.
Hi again,
the
this is
presentation-
Tom. Oh, go ahead.
Presentation that, well, we can continue on with the presentation, and during the time that I'm presenting the budget, if you have more questions, you can add them in. We'll see them.
Okay. All right. I would like to introduce Angie Smith, and she will be giving the presentation on budget forms and instructions.
Thank you, Tammy. Good afternoon, everyone. I congratulate you on your 2021 award. For the budgets, the presentation will be emailed or sent to you, because there are a few things that we need to tweak in the instructions. Like for instance, it says complete sections A through G. This year, with the forms you will be completing, you can complete sections A through Q on the header of the budget form number 1. So and also too, when you are finishing, as they have it in the instructions, that you will sign in blue ink. And again, the question came up about e-signatures. Yes, I like to express to you, when you sign, please do not put an encryption on your forms, because in the finance division, there are things that we have to add. We have to add information in. And so when it is encrypted, that won't allow us to add information in, because a lot of us are working remotely and you are sending a PDF. So we will be looking at and reviewing from a PDF format. And again, most of us are working remotely. Next slide. Okay, as you see for 2021, you see the yellow highlighted areas. On your presentation, when you get it emailed to you, however it's going to be sent to you, it will have an example of these forms filled out. These are just the blanks, and they inserted the blank forms in this presentation, but usually I do have like a example. So I'm gonna have to take a little more time to go through everything. So up at the top and on line A, that's your agency name. B will be the program name. Like for instance, if it's an interim program, you put the interim program, you say interim, or if it's prevention, you will say prevention. And if you have a special name, you put a hyphen and that special name. Also too, please provide the preparer. Also the preparer's email address and their telephone number that we can reach you. So when the finance team wants to talk to you, or if the program team wants to talk to someone who prepared that budget, they will be able to contact them either by the email address or by telephone. And I do understand a lot of people are also working remotely. So we will probably contact you via your email address. And please, if we do reach out to you, please try to contact us back within 24 hours. Again, for the budget, when the budget is prepared and is sent, because the budget will not, and I want to remind you, is that you do not send the budget to me for me to look at it. It has to go to the program division with the scope. And then you will give that goes to the program liaison as is showed earlier in the presentation. On line F, you will put your supplier number. Most of you, if you are already contracted with us, you know your supplier number. And in that, check your award letter, it may be in there. You have to, on line G, you must put your federal employer identification number. And again, we can stop the budget and call out to you, because again, you need to fill these things out so the budget can continue on. Also, they're pre-printed. So if a section is not highlighted in yellow, that means that you cannot write in it. And that information might have been put in by FSS in the beginning. I will automatically calculate that budget allocation Once you finish your budget, it will auto calculate, and it is to match the award amount that's mentioned in your award letter. Line K is already pre-printed. I'm sorry, line J is pre-printed. That's Department of Family and Support Services. K is your global PO number. It says global PO contract number. That is in your award letter, and you can type that information. In the instruction, it says that the department can do it, but now we have opened up and it's highlighted, yellow highlight. You can type that in, and that is your identifier. So when you're getting ready and you're looking for your fully executed contract, you can go out to the website and use that number. Once this contract or this budget is fully executed, you will see your release and your term and all other information in there. Now on line L, it states the global contract term. That is on your amendment page, but you can leave it blank and we can fill it in. And that's why I say do not put an encryption on form number 1 after you sign, because then we can fill that in for you. But again, when you do a budget revision at a later date in the year, you can fill that information in. Right now, please don't put in anything in M, because that is for our finance accountants to do. And on line N, you can put that in because you know when this program is running. In the award letter, I believe it is going to tell you when this program is running. Now, let me say this for those who are funded through IDHS, Emergency Transitional Housing. You will be doing 2 budgets for that funding stream at this time. You will have one for the first 6 months and a budget for the last 6 months. The first 6 months will be from January 1, 2021 through June 30th of 2021. So again, that is for those who are going to be funded with IDHS. Make sure that you have 2 sets of budgets for that funding stream that is mentioned in your award letter. Everyone else, you will submit a budget according to what your award letter states. So the release term you can put in. The funding strip right now, you won't know that because that's new. Our finance team will do that. The accountant will do that once we go through our processes in-house. But again, when you do a budget revision and you see your executed budget out on the website, you can fill that information in, and that's why it's yellow highlighted. And the CFDA number, you can leave it blank, but again, when you do a budget revision later in the year, you can put that information if it applies to your funding. When we get down in the lower part of the form where it lists the account number, the items of expenditure, then that will auto calculate. So you will not worry about, don't call anybody, don't email anyone. That section does not have a yellow highlight. So that means that you will not have to do anything to that particular section because it is auto calculated from forms 2 through 3. Next slide. This is just the bottom portion of form 1 because it couldn't fit, they didn't fit it all in one slide. So it's half. So in section S, Please remember to sign your budget form. Also, 2, type in the name and your title. And for T, that is handled by FSS, and that is the section in which that if when your budget is reviewed and the accountant states that it's fine, then the manager, that is me, will sign. Next slide. Next slide. You will see instructions. You'll have instructions come when you get your presentation. Also, the budget forms and the budget instructions are on the city's website. It showed it when Tammy started out in the presentation, that link that was there. That's where you're going to find your scopes, your budgets, your budget instructions. The form you're looking at right now is form number 2, and that is the form for your personnel salaries. If you are going to budget that in the award that you have received for 2021. The top portion of form 2 will auto-fill when you fill out the header from form 1. It will advance, certain information will advance over to the top part, which is the header of form number 2 that we're looking at. So column 1 is your position title. You are to put the positions in that relate to this project. You can put in those titles that relate to this project, even if we're not going to reimburse you. Now, some people just put the ones in that will reimburse, but you can, and other programs do, ask you to list the titles or the positions that help run this project that you're being funded for. So you'll list the title, the number of people in that position title, that it says the annual salary. Again, for the annual salary, it will be the annual salary. I like to make a notation or to remind those again who are receiving IDHS, ETH funding. Yours is based on 2 6-month programs. So you can give me the 6 months, how much it is for the 6 months, and how many people are in the position. So remember that. Don't do the entire year. You'll do half the year, those who are funded with IDHS, and you're filling out the IDHS ETH budget. So again, you back to column 2, you put the number of people in that title, the annual salary, the number of pay periods, the percentage of time, but also too, I can move back to column 5. If you have people who are hourly, then you will make sure that you fill in column 5. Column 6 is the percentage of time for that position. 7 is not highlighted. That's for the purposes for the controller's office when they're reviewing your vouchers. Is an easy read for them, for each title to say about how much that they would reimburse you for that title. The grant share means if you feel something in there, that means that you would like us to the city of Chicago to reimburse you. If you do not want us to reimburse for that title, do not put any figure in there. Then column 9 will auto-populate, and column 10 will auto-calculate according to what you put in columns 2 through 6. If you do have a position, make sure that you put brief job responsibilities. We hate to have you to fill out all the other information from 1 through 10 and you leave 11 blank, because then we will stop the budget if it gets to finance, if someone overlooked it. So make sure that you do put a brief description. So when you get this presentation, you will see an example of how you fill out the budget. So if you have multiple, if you need more lines, then you will go to Form 2A. There's a Form 2A through C. Now, when we go down to we go to line 13, your fringe benefits, where again, there's a yellow highlight you fill in if you like us to reimburse you. Now, let me state this on the Social Security. You can fill that in, but if you notice to the far right, it has a calculation that's already set in there. That calculation will fill columns 9 and 10. Is auto-calculate. That's a given formula. And when you're computing that formula, if you want us to reimburse you Social Security and Medicare, it has to be in proportion to the total that you see up in column 8 on line 12. It has to be proportionate. Also, too, for the grant share, please be reminded, the grant share cannot be more than the total cost. That means that column 8 cannot be greater than column 10. It's total. If it does, it will start giving you a minus or parentheses, and you should not have any parentheses in the budget. In the total cost, or in the cost columns, total columns, I'm sorry. When you get down to it in the fringe benefits, lines 15, make sure if you're going to ask for any reimbursement or you're showing totals, make sure that you put a calculation in, because that means that the accountant needs to know, and also a controller needs to know, how you arrived at the totals that you have in these columns. In 17, I'm dropping down to 17. You have to tell us if you want us to reimburse, or you are putting a figure in columns 8, 9, and 10. We need to know what type of fringe benefit that you're talking about, because it's not a given. And we do have sometimes where if it was overlooked and it gets to the controller and you're asking for reimbursement, the controller cannot read a mind. You have to put it on the form, because this is the guide that the controller's office uses when they're reimbursing you for your invoice. Also, too, from line 17 through 18, if you fill that out and you want to get reimbursed, or you putting totals in, you have to name them. If you do not have the name, and especially if you are asking us to reimburse, we will hold up on our review, and we will send an email out to you, and then you would have to send the entire package back to us. Also, too, on that, do not, if an accountant contacts you and asks you to fix form, like to say form 2, what you need to do is put all the forms back in. If there's a revision done on that form, you have to revise and make a modification on it. Then you have to send us back the whole set, because again, most of us are working remotely, so we can't piece this together. So try to make sure that you, be precise and be complete and accurate when you do your submission, because When we ask for a correction, again, please send the whole set back again. So that's Form 1 through 3, if it's applicable. Next. Form 2A, if you need additional forms, because you need additional lines, you will fill them out just like you did on form number 2. Next. Next. Okay. We skipped all the way over to 3. 3 is your non-personnel. And a guide for you is on, or is to the left. So that's telling you what type of items that can go in there. Most of you are continuing contracting with us, and you know how particular we can be, especially me. And just look to the left. And like, for instance, the operating and technical, it will list some of those items that can go in there, like, excuse me, legal, publications, rental of property, equipment, services, repair and maintenance of equipment, insurance, utilities, telephone, cell phone. This means telephone service and cell phone service, not to purchase a telephone or a cell phone. That goes in 300. But if it's for the service, it goes in 100. Postage, advertisement, and technical meeting costs. Now, you will, if you want us to reimburse you, you will put your total in column 3. It will automatically, there will be a calculation that will be in column 4, and then your total costs, again, column 3 cannot be greater than column 5. If you do have numbers in columns 3 through 5, you must have some type of justification in there. So again, and you will see this later. I have put as in the example, like audit, legal, your publications, your advertisement, your rent. Now, if you said rental of property, you must send in a separate attachment a copy of your current lease. Now, there are some of you where your leases are running off year and it doesn't go from January to December. Please remember that when we are reviewing, your lease must be in, I would say, the first 6 months of this program period. And I put it that way because you have to remember, we are reviewing hundreds and hundreds, close to thousands of budgets that are coming in, and it takes us time. And during this remote time, it may just take just a little longer. But when you have your lease, you need to have that lease at least that covers January through June. Because if we went back and forth and for some unknown reason, you submitted that budget or that budget had problems with it, and I hope not, that in February, well, if I see that a lease is going to expire in March, I'm going to ask the accountant to go back out and ask you to give us a lease that at least goes beyond the time, because that means you only have 2 more months. and it has to go through the execution period. By the time it executes, your lease is up. So that's why I say, please at least have it to go. You can have it for the entire year, many years, that's fine. But if it's getting close to the time that it's going to expire, I would suggest that you try to get some type of agreement with your property manager, landlord, whoever you are leasing from, to give you a current and up-to-date lease. On to form, I'm sorry, I'm still on form 3. Account 140, professional and tech services. You can have consultants in here. You can have subcontractors in there. You can have security guards in there. You can have some type of instructor, nurse, physician, psychiatrist. But in the agreement, and there are some of the funding streams that you will be funded with, they will want FSS, and it will go to the program division. They want you to have the contractual agreement on file with them. On to travel, as it states, is transportation. Here it says hotels. Most of the time, we do not pay for the hotels in a delegate agency contract. Some programs, again, this form is for the city of Chicago, not just only exclusively for FSS. So some programs will allow certain things, so that's why you'll see hotels, meals, gratuities, parking. Most of the time we don't pay for the hotels in this budget. And so that's why you still see it there, but mainly in this type, these for the homeless, usually we and also in account 200, the travel is for the staff, not the client. It's for the staff. For the client, if you're going to get bus cards, venture cards, or more or less like that, travel, put that down in the 999 account and then label it client assistant, and that will be one of the items that you can get reimbursed. But for the travel is for those who are at your agency, meaning your staff. In account 300, you will list the types of materials and supplies. Please let me remind those who are getting CSBG funding, you cannot put computers, printers in this budget. Again, those who are funded with CS, Community Service Block Grant funds, you cannot put computers, laptops, printers, those big electronic items, you cannot put them in your budget. If you do, we're going to strike it, but we'll let you know that we have to take it out. But if you know it already, just don't put it in. But like for your corporate, you can put it in. For your ESG and your CD, you can put it in. Also in the materials and supplies, you can put fuel in, and that's fuel for your agency vehicle, not staff fuel, but the van or whatever you're using for your agency, yes, but not for staff and reimbursement. Staff gets paid, reimbursed on mileage. We'll pay for the mileage in account 200. For account 400 equipment, do not use that account at all. Some people may have funding with other departments, But for FSS, do not put anything in account 400. Even if you put it in the total cost, do not put anything in there at all. Because if it's in there, we're going to strike it. And then that means you have to do the budget over again, because that total is incorporated in the total cost of the budget. So do not put anything in the equipment line account 400. Indirect, if you are going to ask us to reimburse you for the indirect, you must have a approved indirect letter from your cognizant agency, or if you do not, you will give us a certified letter on your agency stationery. Again, it has to be on your agency stationery, and that you will let us know that if you have applied or you have not applied for a approved rate, and that you would like to use the 10% de minimis rate. And in the instructions toward the back, it will show how you will tell us, and you have to tell us what the rate is. If you have an approved rate, or if you're using the 10% de minimis rate, you just don't put indirect. You have to add that language in. And Budget Office did add have instructions and important information in regards to it, and it is in the instructions on the last 2 pages of the instruction package. And account 999, again, client assistance, or something that you don't see that would fit up in the other accounts, will go down in the 999. And you have to have a description. So if you were using, for instance, client assistance, because this is homeless, but it could be some other things that would apply and go to this account. But one had come as the client assistance. If you're giving your clients bus passes or venture cards, and you know when you do that and you issue them out, that you have to have a roster and keep track of how you're issuing things out. If you are, for some of these programs, they have gift cards, there is a policy that you must have in your procedures in regards to gift cards, and they have to be issued out and kept track of issuing out, and especially if you're asking us to reimburse you for it. Next. Hopefully everybody didn't go to sleep. Okay. Well, this is just an example of how the instructions are going to look once you go out to the website. Next. That concludes my presentation on the budget forms. And if you have questions, Mr. Tom, you're going to assist me again on looking at questions if, let me see, got questions.
Yeah, you can, do you see the question icon kind of with orange? If you click on that, it'll pop out your screen.
Okay, because I have it popped out.
Oh, good. So you just scroll, try to drag the screen down at the bottom with your cursor to make it bigger on your page. And I think you got about 4 questions.
Wait a minute.
After the e-signature, notarized signatures, the questions begin for you at 1:57 p.m.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It says, someone says, will you be given formal notice of the 2020 budget revisions that were approved? Eventually, they will get out to the website. There's one person and what is working remotely and have multiple things. It does take time. Which I tell for those who are concerned about their budget revisions, check your iSupplier because you know what you have asked. A lot of them are approved, but all of them have not made it to the website yet. After a budget revision has been submitted, is it up to the grantee to update the numbers on the iSupplier? Or is it done by the grant office? I'm not really understanding this. All right. Also too, if you have budget revisions and you do not see them out on the website, because there are some folks that I think feel that we're going to give them, the finance team gives them notification that the budget revision is approved. No, we don't. They will eventually go out to the website. But a lot of people are proactive and they go into iSupplier and they know what their budget line changes are. And they see them in iSupplier in the portal, and they go on and they will invoice. Again, your budget revision will eventually get out to the website. On our award letter, it says that the contract type homeless corporate is homeless corporate 9263. Our fund type, your fund is corporate.
I just want to say, yes, that's on the, I'm sorry, Angie, I was on mute. The contract type is the same as the funding source.
Okay. Okay, instructions on indirect states that the budget form indicates either option. However, do we also need to submit a separate certificate? What you will do is the controller does, even though that it has the information in the instructions, you are going to tell us for the indirect, what rate you're going to use. You have an approval letter. You must submit the approval letter scanned with the forms. So it will sit at the back of the forms after Form 3. You're approved, because that has to go to the controller's office also along with your budget forms. So also too, if you have a letter and you don't have an approved rate and you're going to give us the certificate, the certified letter that you're going to use the 10% de minimis, that will be sitting accompanying the budget forms, and it'll be right behind Form 3. Also, there are some people that when on the different accounts, also on Form 3, some folks like to be very wordy. You can list the items for the account, but if you need room, you can put, when you're typing and you think you're going to run out of space, you say see attachment, and then you put an attachment and say attachment for Form 3, account, what it is for which account, and you continue listing those items that you would like to get reimbursed for. So that too will be added. So are there any more questions? I think that's it for the budget portion.
Okay, just as a reminder, ensure that the scope is complete, budget pages are visible. All pages must be submitted along with the required documentation. Be sure you cannot add extra pages to the scope. You have to use, you cannot add any extra pages. So you just have to use the scope and you can't change it. The program description needs to be clear and concise. All the POs are listed with the correct budget allocation and contract type / funding source under section A. Again, like Angie said, the contract type is the same as the funding source. They're the same thing. If DFSS is paying for leasing costs, a copy of the current lease must be submitted and be stated on the budget form 3 non-personnel. If the agency has subcontractors, they must be listed and provided and you have to provide a subcontracting agreement for the services. As Angie indicated, subcontractors must be listed on the budget form 3 non-personnel. Next. Okay, I'm sorry. I do want to add a couple other things. A couple of the other just reminders on the scope is make sure it's completed. Sometimes people forget to put the HMIS number. And then there has been instances for programs that just serve single adults under the number of clients chart. They do not fill out the households. You need to fill out both, even though they will be the same numbers. So I just wanted to emphasize that. The ADA, give me a call if there's any questions on that. And just be sure to follow up with your program manager. They should be the first person you contact. And they're listed here again. And if you have budgetary questions, give Angie Smith a call. And just to emphasize one more time again, be sure when you submit all your documents, just be sure that you only send the contract documents to your contract liaison. The scope and the budget go to your program manager. I just want to make that clear. And then I also want to say, and this hasn't changed, but I just want to emphasize, if you have one scope per program, but you could have up to 4 or 5 budgets. You need to submit all the budgets that relate to that scope with the scope together. So you need to be sure to include all the budgets, submit all the budgets along with the scope.
Also to add, I noticed that you have my telephone number. It's best if you email me if you have any questions. Calling because I'm not always in the office now. Before I was in there quite often, but now I do work remotely a lot. Also too,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Also too, I like to let you know the staff names of the folks on the team that will be reviewing budgets. Linda Ruan, Frankie Coro, and Charlotte Guilty. So if you do receive something from them, like via email, please do respond. Okay, Cindy.
I just wanted to say that we'll be sending out the link to the webinar as well as an updated PowerPoint to all the homeless agencies for reference purposes as you prepare your budgets and scopes. And again, reaching out to your program manager if you have any additional questions or concerns.
I just want to thank everyone for everything that they're doing and all your services that you're providing to our most vulnerable residents. We're all here to help and make this process as smooth as possible. As you are all aware, we've all had to change the way that we operate, and it's added some extra challenges and sometimes delays, but just be patient. But I do want to emphasize one more time, you need to get your CSBG funded programs, the scopes and the budgets to your program manager no later than tomorrow. And all the other funded programs you need to get in as soon as possible also. Again, the sooner that we get it, the faster that you can get access to your funding. And I just can't emphasize enough, and I know that we all have a lot to do, but if you can take the time to review the documents before you send them to us to ensure that they're complete, that really will help the process along. And I just appreciate all of you, and have a good day.